Thanks for joining this webinar on EFT Web Screens. My name is Natalie from Orchid, and today Anne and I will introduce the EFT Processing Web Screens, how to install them, and we will demonstrate some of the key functionality. Many of you have seen the first cut of the EFT Processing Web Screens last year at TPAC. Since then, we have kept working on the framework to generate the web screens in line with Sage's changes and improvements to the Web SDK. The Orchid framework relies on Extender to build and deploy the files required for the Sage web screens. This makes the development and the ongoing maintenance of the web screens easier and ensures that we can keep delivering the functionality and the support that you are used to on the classic desktop screens on the EFT web screens. We're currently doing the final round of testing on version 2021 and pleased to announce the forthcoming release of the EFT web screens for AP and AR. Most core functionality will be available in that release, and we will review that today. And we anticipate the product update to be available on the website in the next 2 weeks. What we will review today is what screens of EFT processing for AP and AR will be available in the next 2 weeks, the prerequisites to install the EFT web screens, how to download, install, and activate the web screens, and then we will demonstrate using the EFT web screens. It assumes some knowledge of EFT processing, I guess, but if you have any questions afterwards on functionality of EFT, we can demonstrate that as well. So, as you're probably all aware, now we have pre-recorded a video since we do this presentation on 3 different time zones. And I will switch to the video, which is about 16 minutes right now, and we'll see you shortly.
Welcome to this EFT Processing Web Screens launch video. My name's Anne from Orchid Systems. In this video, we're going to run through what screens are available in this first release of web screens for EFT processing, the prerequisites for EFT web screens. We're going to download, install, and activate the modules needed. And then I'll give you a demo of the EFT web screens released in this first release. In the first release, at the end of May 2021, we are releasing the following screens. In EFT Transactions, create EFT file. In the EFT Transaction Reports, you are able to print or preview the transfer details and print the remittance advices. In the EFT Setup, you are able to set up options, banks, customers and vendors, and email message templates. And in the periodic processing, you are able to delete inactive records. The prerequisites for EFT web screens is that you need to be on an EFT processing subscription license, and you need to be on the latest PU for EFT processing. For version 2021, you need to be on PU 3 and above. And for Extender, you need to be on PU 9 and above. Extender needs to be installed and activated in all companies requiring the EFT web screens. You do not need a license, you do not need to purchase Extender in order to run EFT web screens. But if the customer does have a runtime or configurator or developer license already, then they are able to run EFT web screens as long as they have an EFT subscription license and PU9 of Extender has been installed and activated in the appropriate companies. And for System Manager, you need to be on PU2 and above for version 2021. We're now going to download, install, and activate EFT Processing and Extender. I'm using version 2021, so the latest PU for EFT Processing is version 3.0, and I will be applying a subscription license. And the latest PU for Extender is PU 9.0, and I'll be installing Extender without a license. And then I'm going to demonstrate the EFT Web Screens. To download Orchid's modules, first you go to orchid.systems, log in, then go to the product downloads. Select the version you want, and then you download the modules you need. In my case, I'm going to be downloading EFT Processing, and Extender. And after downloading, we can go ahead and run the install shield. If you already have EFT installed and a license already on that particular server, it will pick up the license for you and pick up the programs directory and the shared data directory and install the programs for you. If you're installing EFT processing for the first time, then you would key in the serial number and the activation code. To get access to the web screens, the serial number needs to be a subscription serial number. You now get this warning: if you're using Orchid EFT Processing Web Screens, you need to ensure that your site is secure. And it will go ahead and install both the desktop screens and the web screens. And then you need to install Extender. From PU9 and above, Extender no longer prompts you for a serial number and an activation code during the installation. You will fill these in after activating in a company if needed. For EFT Web Screens, you do not need a serial number and an activation code. You only need a serial number and an activation code if you are going to be using other features of Extender. After downloading and installing Extender and EFT Processing, you need to activate the modules. Depending which PU you're on for EFT Processing, you may or may not need to activate that, but you do need to activate Extender in all the companies that you want to run EFT Web Screens on. So you go to Admin Services and select the data activation and activate PU9 of Extender and PU3 of EFT if you're prompted to do so. If you're running Extender without any license files, you will have the setup menu with options and the license screen. And in the options, you are able to see what updates you're on and check if there are any new updates available for you. And in the license screen, you are able to enter a serial number and activation code if the client subsequently purchases Extender. But this is not required for EFT Web Screens only. After downloading and installing the latest PUs of both Extender and EFT Processing, you are now able to run the web screens. So using the browser of your choice, in this case Chrome, and you log into the appropriate company. So EFT has been activated and configured in this company, and the user Anne has access to EFT. And we can now see the appropriate menus. So in the periodic processing, we've got the delete inactive records. In EFT setup, we've got options, banks, customers, vendors, and email messages. In the transaction reports, we've got transfer details and print advices. And in EFT transactions, we can create an EFT file. We have seen if we download, install, and activate the latest PU of EFT processing, and we have a subscription license for EFT processing, and the latest PU for Extender, whether you have a license for Extender or not, the web screens are enabled. And all these steps are described in the EFT training guide. If you go to the section on the web screens, it describes to you how to install the EFT web screens and how to use the EFT web screens. I'm now going to demonstrate the functionality of the web screens in this first release. Using the Sage 300 web screens, and I'm signing in as admin to a company which has already had EFT activated and configured, you can see the EFT menu down the bottom here. With regards to security, it's still set up in admin services under the users and the security groups. So here you would select EFT processing and assign the different functionality to the different security groups. And then depending on the security group that the user is assigned to, they will have access to the appropriate functionality. Within EFT processing, if we start with the setup, in the options, you have your tabs for configuring EFT for AP, the AP email address, EFT for AR, the AR email address, and the functionality is pretty much the same as the Sage 300 desktop screens, except on the default advices. When you are selecting a different advice report, it is providing you a finder within the ELXXA directory, plus the reports in the configured customization directory, if any. So you must put your customized remittance advices in the customization directory. And as a reminder, refer to our help for the difference between the EL Pay01, Pay02, and Pay03 default remittance advices for EFT payments. And we have the Global File Sequence Number tab if you're using that, and the Updates tab. You can use these breadcrumbs to navigate to the other setup screens, in this case EFT Banks. This hamburger icon gives you a selection on all your banks that you have already configured in EFT processing, whereas this finder gives you a finder on all the banks in common services. So if I select CCB, which I've configured already, I would see those settings. With EFT files, when you create EFT files, if the IIS user does not have access to the folder that you need to create the file in, then you could select to download. In this case, when you create the EFT file, it will prompt you to download that file and save it somewhere locally. But if you leave it as file, then the IIS user needs access to this directory. And there is no finder on this directory. So if you do need to fill in a directory using the web screens, you need to copy and paste from Windows Explorer. And just like the Sage normal screens, you can navigate between your open screens using this view as well. In the EFT customers, again, you have the hamburger to show you all the customer records that have already been configured for EFT processing. And this finder shows you a finder on all your AR customers. Similarly for the vendors. All the vendors that have already been configured in EFT processing. Whereas these two finders are on AP. So that's AP vendors and remit to accounts within the selected vendor. And the last icon we have in the setup menu are the email message IDs. And a reminder again, in both the F1 help on the desktop screens or in the online help for the web screens, you have all the messages that you can include in the different remittance advices, and you can use this to copy and paste those details into your email template. And now we have a number of screens open in the Open Windows list. Under the periodic processing, we have the single screen which enables you to clear down EFT records for customers and vendors where the customer and vendor no longer exists in AP or AR. And as you are using the screens, they are building up in your recently used windows as well as in the currently open windows. And for the reports, we have the transfer details and the print advices. The transfer details enables you to print transfers done in a date range or in a creation number range. And as per the Sage report object, this PDF will get downloaded to your local drive, where you can save it wherever you need to and then open it up to view the contents when you need to. And the transfers created gives similar information, but just one row per transfer created. With the print advices, you can select whether you want the delivery method to be vendor or customer. That is, will it be an EFT email address or the customer or vendor's email address, or print destination, in which case the PDF will be downloaded as we saw with the transfer details. We're going to select vendor or customer delivery method and do an AP payment batch and select our email message template for the remittance advice. And I'm going to do batch number 1. Because I've done it previously, I'm going to check this box and go ahead and either print or email the AP vendors remittance advice, depending on the setup in EFT vendors and on AP vendors for the delivery method. In this case, there are 2 emailed advices that have been sent to vendor 4540 and 1450. And if we go to look at our Outlook, we will see those 2. So this is the remittance advice email template that we had selected. And if we go to open this, because we've got password protection turned on, I need to type in the password to the PDF before I can open up the email remittance advice attachment. And in this case, it was just the vendor ID. And for the Create EFT file, I'm first going to go and set my bank to enable the file to be downloaded, so I can show you that functionality. And then in Create EFT file, if we choose a batch for bank CCB, our normal message, because I have already exported this batch before. And now it has created apa1.cpa, and I'll save it where I want to subsequently upload this file to the bank. As a reminder, both in the training guide and in the online help, you have both the how to install the EFT Web Screens and how to use the EFT Web Screens. Thank you for your time in watching the Spotlight on EFT Web Screens, how to install and activate and use EFT Web Screens. For more information on EFT processing, Extender and other Orchid products, please go to orchid.systems.
Thank you, Anne. So we've seen how, as with other Sage 300 core modules, you can now set up and run EFT processing on the web screens. All the browsers supported by Sage are supported in EFT processing as well. And the functionality that you are used to on the classic desktop screens, like all the formats that are available, the ability to add additional fields depending on your file formats, uploading to FTP, the security, the ability to encrypt some bank account numbers, to add a password to the remittance advice. All this is available on the screens that we've demonstrated. So it is pretty much the same functionality. The web screens will be available to users on a current subscription. If you need to switch from perpetual license to a subscription, please contact us or your distributor, and we can organize that. Just to confirm and reiterate how it works with Extender. Extender in this context is used to deploy the files required for Sage to display the web screens in the browser. So that's the JavaScript and the HTML files. So we generate the same code as the Sage Web SDK framework, but we just generate it in a slightly different way. We use a different tool to build those screens developed on Extender to make the building and the ongoing maintenance of the web screens easier. It also means that we have a single source between the web screens and the desktop screens, so we can do the QA and the testing more easily. We are currently doing the final round of testing on version 2021. So the first cab off the rank is going to be version 2021 in the next 2 weeks. Because there are often changes in the Sage SDK and the system manager with the different versions, we will then do some testing with the other supported versions, 2020 and 2019, but we haven't done that. We haven't done that one yet. We will then continue working on the other remaining EFT APR web screens and other Orchid modules, in particular Notes and Document Management Link, in the next few months. So keep an eye on our newsletter and on the webinars for more information on that. So yeah, with regards to Extender, just to reiterate, you do not need to purchase Extender, you just need to install and activate. And to install the EFT processing web screens, there is no tick box on the EFT installer. You have the security tick box, but you don't choose to install and not install. To enable the web screens, you just need to have an EFT processing subscription license and to activate Extender. Then, provided your Sage 300 web screens are up and running and you have security to run EFT in admin services, then you will see EFT in the web screens. So this is what we wanted to share with you today, and we're really excited. It has been a long time coming. As you know, Sage's web screens have changed, and the SDK has changed a lot over the last few years. So we have had to keep up with that, and we're really excited that we are very close to the first release. We now have time for questions. Please put them in the questions box as you're all in listen-only mode. We can take questions obviously on the web screens as well as more general questions on EFT. And while you are thinking of questions, I'll just make Anne the presenter again. She will show us how we can, when we use the print advice email. In the video, we didn't demonstrate the emailing, but just reiterating, it is the same process as now. When you go print advice, depending on your delivery method and how your vendors and customers are set up, then you can, it will either print or email. So we will demonstrate that now. And Before we do that, will we receive a copy of the recording? Yes, you will, probably early next week, and it will be available on our website as well. Is Extender available in the web screens? Not yet. That is part of what we'll be working in the next few months. Well, actually, to take a step back, with Extender, the Extender screen customizations are not available. The custom table editor is not available, but if you have a view script that is doing some validation at the view level, those validations are, or if you're running Extender configurator to start a workflow or to do some logging, this actually works with, if you're logging, let's say, AP vendor changes, and you're using AP vendor on the web screens with Extender set up and configured on the desktop screens, the logging will work when you use the web screens. So let me first hand over to Anne to demonstrate the emailing using the web screen, and then we'll come back to more questions.
Thank you, Natalie. I'm hoping you can all see my Sage Classic desktop. No one's given me the thumbs down, so I'm assuming that's the thumbs up. Thank you, Natalie. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending what time zone you're in. So yes, I'm going to show you emailing remittance advices from the web screens. So if I just connect to the web screens, so this time I'm using Edge. And I'm going to log in as admin to this company where EFT is already configured. So as you know, with EFT, the configuration on who gets the remittance advices for vendors or customers, so your direct debit advices or your AP vendor remittance advices, it depends on how you've configured the EFT vendor record or the EFT customer record. So for example, for any payments made to vendor 1200 with PO box, remit to is going to email this particular address. So this could be one single email address, or using semicolons, you can have multiple email addresses, and this field width is 250 long, so you can fit quite a few email addresses in there. So, and it's going to be using that email address because on the delivery method, I've said use the vendor's email to address. I could have selected the AP vendor delivery method. In that case, it goes to AP vendors, checks the delivery method, whether it's set to use the vendor's contact email or the vendor's main email address or print mail. So then in that case, we would physically print the remittance advice. Do we support multiple contacts? Not yet. We plan to include this in our version 2022 release, so that'll be August this year. And then you'll be able to configure multiple contacts on the AP vendor or the AR customer and have the form type of remittance advice, and you'll be able to send to multiple people using that way. But at this stage, we do not support multiple contacts. But my emails are, apologies, my mouse is playing up. My email is configured to go to the EFT vendor's email address, and the email address is Orchid Systems Modules. So if I go now to send the remittance advices and show you the emailing side of it. So in print advices, I would, sorry, I'm really struggling here. In my print advices, I would select my destination, my delivery method as vendor or customer. Choose the batch that we're doing. So we're going to be doing AP payment batch number 1. Override the report if I've got the security clearance to do that, or otherwise it defaults from your EFT options. I'm just going to select my EFT payment message, and I'll just key in the batch number that I want to do and select, I've already emailed before from this batch, so I need to check that I want to re-email, and you go ahead and print. So what this is doing is checking the EFT vendor record to see which email address to use and also maybe to print, and then formatting the emails, PDFing the reports, and emailing or just printing, depending on what you've been set up to do. So I should get a message fairly soon because there's 2 entries. So it's emailed 2 advices, you know, for 4540 and for 1450. It's emailed those 2, and there were only 2 entries in the batch, and they were both set for email, so it hasn't printed any. But had there been some that the delivery method was mail, I would have, in addition to that, I would have had a PDF that I need to download and print locally. So let's go to the email and see if those emails have come through. Not yet. So let's do a send and receive. So here are the 2 remittance advices that have come through from that particular batch. So we have our formatted text in the email message as per usual, and the opening up the remittance advice, so that's the PDF form you can do. And in this particular case, 4540, I have password protected the remittance advice with the vendor's code. So if I've remembered that one correctly, you've got access to the, you know, once you key in the password to the PDF, you can open up the file. So exactly the same functionality that you have in sending remittance advices from the desktop screen is available in the web screens. As with all the web screens that we've released so far, the functionality is identical. So while
Thank you, Anne. Did you want, I think we're done with this one?
I was going to, yeah, we're done with this one. Just going to address questions.
So the next question is it possible to set up one bank with multiple upload formats? And the example is Direct ACH as well as Wells Fargo Payments Manager, which have different upload formats. Can we use one bank code to use multiple formats?
Yes, you can do that. So you would typically, in your EFT bank, you would set up the EFT bank record to have the most common format that you use. So if for CCB, you typically use the ACH format, that's the most popular one, then you would fill in here what the ACH format is. And then for all your batches, when you come to create EFT file and you choose a batch that's from CCB, it will default. So let me just choose batch 1 again. It defaults to the file type that you've set up on the EFT bank. So let's say that if I had made that my ACH format, it would be the ACH format. But if batch number 1, you actually wanted to use Wells Fargo additional format or different format, you would then choose that format at the time of exporting. So at the time of exporting, the format can be overwritten. So obviously you need to group your batches, your entries together. So all the entries in payment batch number 1 are going to use this format. Payment batch number 2 could be using your ACH format. So you just set up your most commonly used one so you don't have to override it every time. Now in a release of EFT, possibly January this year, we have also included a new feature which allows you to, some banks have a format which have different structures per payment type. So you can say row 1, this is an ACH payment, row 2, this is a wire payment, and row 3, this is a domestic transfer, wire transfer. And they all have completely different formats. So as of January this year, we are able to support a single bank file containing multiple different formats if your banks allow that. So if you do have that scenario as well, let us know, send us the spec, and we'll create a format that includes that. You do need to be on this ability to do multiple file formats in a single file is only in supported versions of EFT. So just from 2019 and up, you can't port these new formats back into unsupported versions of EFT processing.
Thank you, Anne. Next question is regarding the product updates that we require. We do require PU2 of System Manager 2021, and I think the PU3 we referred to was PU3 of EFT processing. If you look at our website, you won't see PU3 just yet. It will be there in the next 2 weeks. So that's PU3 of EFT processing and PU2 of System Manager 2021, which is the latest version of System Manager PU of System Manager 2021. Our next question is, can we use Outlook for emailing from the web screens rather than the SMTP from EFT?
Good question. So
have we tested that? Does it actually work with
no.
in Sage, on the Sage web screen? Can you use Outlook, or do you have to configure Sage SMTP company profile to email an AR customer document? Or
that's really the question. So in common services on the company setup, are you able to, do you know that, Battle? Are you able to leave this blank and it'll send via Outlook? If the answer is yes, then on the EFT emailing tab for AP and AR, you would also leave the email server blank, and it would then use the default sending method of Sage. If you are sending via Outlook, though, if you are using Sage's email, even if Sage was configured as SMTP, if you're using Sage to do the emailing, you can't password protect your PDFs. So it's only if you're using EFT's SMTP can you password protect the PDFs going out. So we will test leaving this blank and to make sure it picks up Outlook. But I'm assuming if Sage can do it, we can do it.
thank you. I think we've answered all the questions in there, Anne, haven't we?
I'm struggling with my mouse, Natalie. I can't get to the question box.
Okay. Well, I think I can see all the questions that have been asked. So thanks, everyone, for your questions. We will send the recording early next week. So if you have any questions when you watch the recording, or some of your colleagues that you share the recording with have any questions, please contact us on support@orchid.systems. And
sorry, just one thing, Natalie. I realized in the video I made a mistake, which is why the video will only come out next week, because I need to correct that. In the default advices, I said that the list of files that you see here need to be in the ELXXA directory, not in the customization directory, and that is incorrect. So the list of files you see here is the combination of the report files in the ELXXA directory and your configured customization directory for the version you're running. So this is the sum total of your remittance reports that you can choose. So you can still put your customized remittance advices in the customization directory, and you'll still be able to select them on this tab.
Thank you for clarifying that, Anne. So thanks for attending today, and enjoy the rest of your day. And we look forward to working with you on implementing the web screens with existing and new clients.
Thanks for your time. Chat to you soon. Bye.